I pretty much had a normal childhood. I can't really remember what it was like growing up as a toddler, but my older years were full of warm memories and fun times. My mom and dad were pretty much my best friends. We had so much fun together. We'd play board games, go surfing, eat out at delicious diners. My parents were pretty much the best. I know a lot of teens complain about their parents or whatever, but I never did. I loved them, and if I didn't have that many friends my age, I was fine with that, because at least I had them. But alas, like all good things, they must come to an end. For one day, something happened that changed my life forever, and it was all because of Google. But before I go on, please don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Also make sure you tap on that notification bell so you are the first to know about a new video. You see, when I was 16, Google created a new app that became hugely popular around the world. It was an app that could detect whether or not you were related to someone. And it was fun finding out that a kid in the same class as you was a distant cousin, twice removed, or that a random stranger was actually your long-lost brother. It sparked new friendships and was all around fun to use. I decided to try it out, so I told my parents and we had a go at it. I downloaded the app on my phone, turned on the camera, and flipped it to selfie mode. My parents were sitting beside me, my mom on the right and my dad on the left. We waited for the app to do its thing, and pretty soon a ping sounded that told us the results were in. I was excited to see if the app could detect that we were all related, but when I clicked on the results, it gave me a shock. According to Google, my dad and I weren't related. What? How come we're not related? I asked them. Oh, it must be a faulty app, said Mom quickly. Yeah, faulty, said Dad. I looked at them strangely. They were acting really weird. I turned away back to the phone screen, but I swear I felt my parents give each other a look behind my back. What was wrong with them? I decided to try it out on me and my sisters. My two younger sisters came running in and the app scanned our faces. The results pinged, but again, the results shocked me. Apparently, my sisters and I were only partly related. That must mean we shared the same mom, right? Then I started to think, now that I thought about it, my dad and I didn't look that similar. He was dark-skinned and had wild curly hair, whereas I was fair and blonde like my mom. And I knew all about how darker tones were more dominant, so it didn't make any sense that I looked nothing like my dad. And the same with my sisters. I always thought we were different, but now that the app has revealed my dad and I weren't related, it got me thinking, what if my dad wasn't my real dad? What if Mom had cheated on my dad and he wasn't my actual biological father? That's so weird, I said. Then I looked at my parents. Can you explain why it would say I'm not related to Dad? Just ignore it, said Dad. You can't trust an app. But the thing was, the app had been right with everyone else I knew. It had boasted a 99% success rate in its analyzing. And honestly, I was starting to suspect that my mom really had cheated. I decided it was best to do a DNA test. So without my parents knowing, I sneaked into their rooms at night and plucked a strand of hair from each of them. I was so scared they would wake up and get mad at me, but I was willing to take the risk. Finally, I managed to sneak back out of the room, and the next day, I went to a medical center to test their DNA in comparison to mine. I had to wait a few hours at the clinic, but eventually the nurse came out and confirmed that I was not related to subject A, my dad, but I was related to subject B, my mom. This shocked me to my core. I half expected the Google app to just be faulty like my parents said, but as it turned out, it was true. My dad wasn't my real dad. I was definitely related to my mom, which meant my mom had cheated. I was disgusted and hurt and confused all at the same time, but my mom and dad loved each other. They hardly ever argued, and they seemed to be so loyal too. I could never imagine my mom cheating on my dad. It just didn't make any sense, but the DNA test couldn't lie. So I decided I had to confront my mom. Mom, can I speak to you about something? I asked one day. Sure, honey, what is it? She said. Is Dad my biological father? I asked. What? She cried. Did you cheat on Dad with someone else? Please, just tell me. Honey, I don't know what... Oh, stop lying, I suddenly shouted. I know you cheated on Dad. I know. I did a DNA test and Dad and I aren't related. Suddenly, Dad came into the room. Hey, what's all this shouting? Mom cheated on you, I yelled. What? Cried out Dad. No, honey, she's just confused, said Mom. She knows she's not related to you. Dad sighed in relief. Oh, I see. He looked at me then. Honey, there's something you should know. I'm not your father. Yeah, I know that, I said, but it still hurt to hear my dad finally say it. No, honey, said Mom. You don't understand. I'm not your real mom either. My entire world shattered into a million pieces. What? So, was I adopted? But how come my mom and I were related? It didn't make any sense. While all these thoughts zoomed through my head, my mom and dad, or rather, not my mom and dad, finally told me the truth. Your mom is technically your sister, explained Dad. My jaw dropped in shock. I'm sorry, darling, but it's true. Our parents are wanted criminals. They've been involved in some very, very bad stuff. They've been to jail already, and, well, have you heard about that huge bank robbery a few years back, where $10 million was stolen? I nodded numbly. Well, that was our parents, said Mom. They're bad people, honey. I left them as soon as I was 18, but when you were born, I couldn't leave you in their hands. They would ruin your childhood. So after talking to them, they finally let me take you and raise you as my own daughter. And don't think this changes anything between us. I will always be your mother, and you will always be our daughter. I'll always be your dad, honey, said my father. I didn't know what to do. This was so much to process. Please don't tell anyone about this, said Mom suddenly. I know our parents are criminals, but just don't tell the police, okay? I hadn't even thought about that. My parents were robbers, criminals, and my mom wasn't even my mom. When I had first used that app from Google, I never thought that it would reveal that I was adopted and who my parents really were. This was crazy. My life had turned into a TV show drama. I had a lot to think about. Should I tell the police or not? Where were my parents now? Why did they pick a life of crime? Suddenly, I felt very, very angry at them. My real parents had abandoned me. They deserved to go to jail. They had robbed a bank of millions of dollars. I had to tell the police. But then I would feel conflicted as Mom, or rather my sister, had begged me not to tell the police. But I guess the universe decided things for me because a few weeks after this secret was revealed to me, my real parents turned up on my doorstep. I opened the door to find two older people standing there, dressed in rags, and that's when I realized who they were. My real parents. My daughter, cried out the woman, and suddenly she leaned forward and hugged me. I pushed her away. Sure, she was technically my mom, but I didn't even know her. Then my mom, my sister, appeared behind me. Mother, Father, what are you doing here? Sweetie, we need your help. Can we come in? Asked my biological father. Okay, fine. Come in. Once we were seated in the living room, that's when they explained their plan. We need to use you to help us escape, my biological mom told me. You see, the police are on to us. We've been in hiding for many years now, but someone spotted us at the supermarket the other day and recognized us from the news. We have to make it to Canada somehow, and I know this is a lot to ask, but we need your help. If you come with us to the airport and fly over to Canada with us, then it's unlikely anyone will recognize us. You see, they have no idea that we have a daughter. Please, this determines whether we go to jail or not. I was so shocked to hear this. First off, I had just found out my mom was my sister. Secondly, I discovered my real parents were criminals. And thirdly, my real parents had turned up on my doorstep and asked me to be a part of their escape plan. This was just too much to take in. A part of me thought, why should I help them? They abandoned me because they loved a life of crime. But another part of me felt sorry for them, and after all, they were family. And so, despite Mom's protests, I accepted. I said I would help them. They thanked me so much, and my parents forbade me from going through with it, but they couldn't stop me. In the middle of the night, I snuck out, met up with my biological parents, and we drove off to the airport. I had to wear a disguise, so they gave me a long black wig to wear. Meanwhile, they had shaved off their hair and replaced them with strange-looking mohawks, and had tried on a more punk style. They were unrecognizable. When we got to the airport, I was so nervous. I felt like every officer there was watching us, and I could feel sweat dripping down my back. We passed through check-in, and as we were just about to board the plane, suddenly security called us back. They caught us. Next minute, I was in a room with a police officer yelling at me, telling me to tell her everything. I was so scared I couldn't say a word. I thought I would end up going to jail, become a criminal just like my real parents. But then the door burst open. In came my sister. "Mom!" I cried out. My mom dealt with everything. She explained the situation with our parents and how they had manipulated me into helping them, and by the end of the day, I was let free and we returned back home. My biological parents are now in jail, and for a long time, too. Meanwhile, my parents and I are doing fine. If anything, my mom and I are closer now that I know we're sisters. But of course, like she said, she will always be my mom. And my dad will always be my dad. And I'll always be their daughter.